Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bookshop as we present our wonderful event today with America's Test Kitchen for its 20th anniversary with Collin Davison and Bridget Lancaster, both executive editorial directors. How exciting. We are also here to celebrate the America's Test Kitchen TV show cookbook 2001 to 2021. Every recipe from the hit TV show, along with product ratings, which you can find on bookshop.org. So here is how the event is going to go today. I am going to be giving a brief intro about Bookshop and about our wonderful accomplished guests and about America's Test Kitchen. And then I'm going to actually share a clip from America's Test Kitchen, it's a fun reel celebrating its 20 years. And then I'm going to go away and Bridget and Julia will come on and talk about their favorite meals and their times together during the course of the show and the book as well. And then take your questions in by about 30 minutes into the event. So if you are watching this live, of course, please submit your questions at the bottom with the Q&A icon. If you're watching this pre-recorded later, obviously you can't submit questions, but thank you for your interest. And again, we might not be able to get to all questions today. So thank you for understanding if we cannot, or if Julia and Bridget cannot seem to get through all the questions before the event is over. So thank you so much for understanding that. And again, this event is recorded, so it will be on Bookshop's YouTube channel after this is done. So again, normally I have our guests and our panelists on with us for this intro, but right now, because we're going to play a fun clip for you right after this, they're going to come on after the clip is played. So I'm going to say a little bit about Bookshop and then do our bios for our great panelists. And then we're going to go into our clip and then we'll have Bridget and Julie on. Thank you. So first, a word about Bookshop. Every book purchase that you make on bookshop.org directly supports independent and local bookstores. And Bookshop is an online bookstore with a mission to financially support independent bookstores because we believe that bookstores are essential to a healthy culture. They're where authors connect with readers, where we discover new writers, and where children get hooked on the thrill of reading that can last a lifetime. And of course, they're anchors for our downtowns and for our communities. So as more and more people buy their books online, even before quarantine, we wanted to create a place that has an easy, convenient way for you to get books and support local bookstores at the same time, especially those stores whose e-commerce capacity or their inventory space can be supplemented by bookshop.org. So as a standard, we at Bookshop always encourage customers to buy books directly from the local bookstore you have whenever possible first. And if for some reason you cannot do so, you can come to bookshop.org and find your local store or more stores on our map on our site, and they will receive the full profit off your order. Otherwise, your order will contribute to an earnings pool that will be distributed evenly among independent bookstores, even those that don't use Bookshop. So in addition to that, we also support anyone who advocates for books. So if you're an author or a website or a magazine or anyone, a book club, if you have a social media account, or even if you don't, you will get 10% of the fee that we send to the independent bookstore pool. That 10% also will be matched and go to you, the affiliate. So it's free to be an affiliate. You get 10% of all sales made through your affiliate page, and an additional 10% goes to our independent bookstore pool that is distributed several times a year. Bookshop wants to give back to everyone who promotes books, authors, and independent bookstores. And again, it's free to become an affiliate. So by design, we give away over 75% profit margin to our stores, publications, authors, and others who make up the thriving inspirational culture around books. So with that being said, just a reminder that we hope Bookshop can help strengthen the fragile ecosystem and margins around book selling and keep local bookstores an integral part of our culture and our communities. Bookshop is a B Corp, a corporation dedicated to public good. So with that, let's have the intros of our panelists. We'll play our clip from America's Test Kitchen, and then you will get to have a great conversation with Bridget and with Julia. So Collin Davison is an executive editorial director for America's Test Kitchen. She is also co-host of America's Test Kitchen and Cook's Country, and is an original cast member of both shows, which are two of the highest rated instructional cooking shows on television. Julia began working as a test cook for Cooks Illustrated in 1999 and led recipe development for America's Test Kitchen cookbooks for more than a decade. Julia is a regular guest on the Dr. Oz Show, Hallmark Channel's Home and Family, and QVC, and has appeared on Fox and Friends, the Tamron Hall Show, and Today. She graduated from the Culinary Institute of America in 1996. She received an Augie Award from the Culinary Institute of America and was inducted in the prestigious Disciple d'Escoffier Culinary Society in 2018. And Bridget Lancaster, again, you'll see both of them soon right after this clip, is also an executive editorial director for America's Test Kitchen. She's known to millions of fans as a co-host of America's Test Kitchen and also Cooks Country, which both air on public television. Bridget is also host and producer of the award-winning podcast Proof. She is working as a test cook for Cooks Illustrated. She was since 1998 and was also part of the launch team for Cooks Country magazine and then led the magazine's recipe development. Bridget is the lead instructor for America's Test Kitchen Cooking School and has created hundreds of instructional videos. In her earlier career, she cooked in a restaurant kitchens both in the South and Northeast, and she concentrated on pastry. She was inducted also into the prestigious Disciple d'Escoffier Culinary Society in 2018 as well. So with that, we will screen share this great clip from America's Test Kitchen now, celebrating 20 years. Please note, with virtual screen sharing, and you probably know this, there is a little bit of a lag in the video and audio, so apologies. That is the space that we are currently living in 2020 at the moment. So again, after that, Julia and Bridget will be on screen to chat with you and with each other and answer your questions about 30 minutes in. So thank you all for joining us on behalf of Bookshop and America's Test Kitchen. And here we go. Let's play our reel.
Welcome to America's Test Kitchen at home.
At home.
At home. At home.
At home.
At home. An Olympian-worthy pasticcio. It's a lot easier than exercising. Ta-da! That is a taco. So what I have here is some cornstarch. It's just in a pie plate. You can use any sort of plate. We're gonna hit both sides of the salmon, and then you wanna brush off any extra with a pastry brush. You wanna make sure you get it all over your shirt. That's how everyone can know that you've been the one in the kitchen. Now, I like to store our parsley in a little jug of water because it reminds me, A, that my husband never sends me flowers, and this will have to do. But also, it's just going to keep the herbs nice and lively.
This is my absolute favorite knife. I got this in France, and it's a carbon steel knife. You'll have so much more fun in the kitchen if you have knives that fit you. So just a little tip.
Today, I want to talk about my tank. It's a very good tank. Filled with 20 pounds of CO2, and I use it to carbonate everything I can get my hands on. And I want to show you why you should do the same thing.
I grew up having Maggi seasoning. It's kind of what you get if Worcestershire sauce and soy sauce got together and had a baby, and that baby was supercharged with umami.
Just going to put this in our food processor and buzz it for 5 to 7 pulses until it's coarsely chopped. I'm going to plug it in too. That's always good.
I guess this is my day for tiny little tools. My little tiny measuring cup and my little tiny whisk that I absolutely love.
This smells so amazing. Fresh corn, red peppers, onion, garlic, and cayenne. And butter beans, my favorite.
And finally, the favorite Hawthorne stringer, like Cocktail Kingdom. This helps to hold back ice or ingredients like fresh mint or lemon after you mix drinks.
With each of these tools, you're ready to drain anything. Here's mud in your eye.
Mom, if you're watching TV, I want you to turn off the set right now. Okay, good. Our mother's not here, so I can tell you, I hated tuna fish when I was a kid, and I had it all the time.
Fresh green salad, how do I love thee? All that ingredient prep, do I love thee? With the right salad gear, which we have here, it could well be. Okay, so I'm not a poet.
Oh, this pineapple has beautiful grill marks on both sides, but it's still holding together. We haven't overcooked it. It's going to add a really lovely, slightly grilled flavor to the salsa.
So to go with my very special waffles, I have a very special guest for brunch today. My mom, Dr. Price.
Hi.
Hi. I made waffles.
I'm excited. You know, I love waffles.
I got some toppings for Mom. I got peaches. I have maple syrup.
I want everything. Heavy on the goodness.
All right.
It's cheese time. It's always a good time when it's cheese time. You know that you're nearing the end of the pizza making extravaganza when the cheese hits the board. The Thai cut is just about done, and the color is beautiful. Oh, this is like magic happening in the kitchen right now. Delicious.
So it's time to flip. Now, for a brave, I would do it in one fell swoop. but I'm not. I'm going to do it the safe way.
Seo in banseo means sizzling, and that means we need a really hot skillet. We got a full half cup, and in we go. So you can see it's already got lots of little bubbles in the top, like when you make pancakes, they're popping through. That's going to give us some of that nice lacy texture.
Okay, so our second batch of cookies has come out of the oven and they've cooled and they're ready to eat. And I brought in a special person.
Oh,
My mom. You want to help yourself?
these are delicious.
From America's Test Kitchen at Home, a great recipe for chili verde con cerdo. It's really good.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Bridget.
Hey, Julia. Hey, everyone. Hey, Bookshop.
Hey, bookshop.org. I love that business plan. I mean, that you can shop online and support your local bookstores in towns and towns around you is just an amazing idea. So thank you for having us on. I'm happy to support what you do and to talk about this year's cookbook, which obviously goes along with our TV show. We're the longest running cooking show on television, believe it or not. And so the book's big because it contains every recipe we've ever
The
done.
book is literally big. It's huge. You can actually use it not just for cooking, but you can use it to work on your biceps and your triceps. So it's the gift that keeps on giving. But yeah, here's the big guy here, right there.
Yep.
Let's get it in there.
Yeah, and what's fun, and so this book, as we mentioned, it's all the years that we've been on TV. This last year was particularly interesting because it was different than anything we've ever done in that we all filmed pretty much in a home setting, our own homes. And that's because we couldn't be together on set for obvious pandemic reasons. And we didn't want to skip the season, so we rejiggered it. And so this season, as you got a little snapshot during that video, was just different. We all were by ourselves. We did our own food prep. We had a minimal amount of cameras, and it was very homey. And also the selection of recipes was different.
The selection of recipes was different. You're right. We chose things that we would cook at home, but also things that made sense for us to share with you on a one-on-one basis. Oftentimes when there's two of us on camera, it's great because it'll be somebody's own story and they'll get to share it with the host. Julia and I will help to kind of draw out that story from our co-cook, I guess you would call them, from the test cooks. But this time it was, there was a lot of personal stories behind the food, a lot of funny stories behind the food. And you just really just saw a snippet of what's to come. There's a lot more.
Yeah, and I think when we're cooking on the set of America's Test Kitchen, it's very clean. It's very, it looks like a lab. It looks like a science lab. And so that really gets to the science behind the food is what we're really proud of and what we really focus on for ATK. But this year, being in different locations for everybody and in this home setting, you just saw a different side of these recipes. So we'll still explain the science, but you see how easy some of these recipes are, how easy they come together in your home cooking environment. And I think it's just a really unique view onto some recipes that I think up until now may have looked just a little hard or a little robotic. You see how easy they are to come together. And we focused on a lot of basics because our viewer base and our reader base is just skyrocketed because we have such valuable content for people in our recipes and our equipment tests and our taste testing. So we have a lot of new viewers and a lot of new readers. And so we focused a lot on the basics, how to sear, how to braise, how to chop an onion, because if you know it already, it's always good to hear it again. You'll pick up new tips. And if you don't know it, of course, it's a great introduction. So in that way, it was a bit different for us as well.
And each cast member was asked to come with some personal tips or something that was special to them in terms of cooking or, just being at home. So some people might show off their favorite cookbook, other than ATK. Dan showed, he'll show you why he carbonates everything under the sun.
That was amazing. He whipped out this huge tank that basically looked like he was going to start welding in his kitchen, but it's how he carbonates everything. And he keeps it on his back porch. I was dying. Wait, Bridget, your tip actually.
Not to the garlic?
Since you told me that, it is our new thing, and I was like, why didn't I think of this before? Now you have to share your tip.
All right. Well, it's especially good this time of year because, of course, you need lots of garlic to keep away the vampires. As you can tell, I'm a little into Halloween. So I go through tons of garlic, and I buy it in bulk. So the best way to keep tons of garlic is in the freezer. You just keep the cloves. Cloves are already peeled. You buy them in a bag or in a container, and you put them in the freezer. And then as you need garlic for a recipe, you'll pull out how many you need. Let them sit there for just a few seconds, maybe 10 seconds. And then you use a rasp grater to grate the garlic. And it goes just like that. I mean, it's the fastest way to deal with garlic. And it's always there. It's always ready.
Yeah, I love
How'd you like that?
Yeah, I loved it. And now I know where this book has so many recipes, but you and I obviously have favorites in this book.
Yes.
My favorite, I'm going to try to keep this short when I'm talking about my favorite recipe. Bridget has, we've been on the road for the past few years talking about food and cooking and our favorite recipes. And I've had to be pulled off stage because I talk about this recipe.
I know what you're going for. I know what you're going for right now.
It's the weeknight roast chicken. It is just the easiest roast chicken you can imagine. You can memorize the recipe. And it's also, the recipe is not only terrific, but the story behind the recipe is fun. So it was a recipe that was given to Brian Roof, who's on Cook's Country now. At the time, he was on Cooks Illustrated as a test cook. So this was many years ago. And he was asked to develop a recipe for a weeknight roast chicken that didn't brine, didn't flip. It was just easy, hands off. And he was early on in the testing, and he had a handful of chickens in the ovens at different oven temperatures. And halfway through his test, all the power went out. And
weeknight roast chicken.
Yes. Oh, so good. And so the power went off and all the ovens went down. And so his test was ruined, but he left the chickens in the off ovens because they were still warm and they were sealed just to finish cooking through. So at least the food wouldn't get wasted. And they are the best chickens he ever made. And so the final recipe actually has you turn the oven off partway through cooking because there's enough heat in the chicken in the oven to help it finish cook through, but it doesn't overcook the meat. And it starts in a preheated skillet. And once 425, 30 minutes at 425, 30 minutes with the oven off, it's just so basic.
You don't have to shut down all your power, right?
Yes. Bring out the candles. Oh, don't tell my family that. I make them shut all their phones off. There's no power. So I could go on and on about roast chicken and why it is the ultimate meal that everyone should know how to make. So that's my recipe. Bridget, now your recipe, I'm guessing, was baking.
Yes, I do a lot of the baking on the show. It's what I love to do at home as well. I love anything having to do with cinnamon or cinnamon buns, monkey bread I've done over the years, cinnamon raisin loaf. I mean, just about anything. And this particular recipe was for sticky buns. Now, it was the first season that Julie and I were hosts. And it was the end of the first week of production. We were filming and, we were nervous going into these new roles. And by the end of the week, we'd also pretty much every year we tend to, at least I'm going to speak for myself here. I try to thin down a little bit before TV and get camera ready. So it was the end of the first week, the last recipe we were filming at the end of a very long day. And they brought out these sticky buns. We have twins, which we'll get into in a minute, twins of food so that we're not sitting around waiting for 3 hours for sticky buns. And they bring out the sticky buns. I have one, Julia has one. Julia was the host for that particular episode. So she's talking about what's going on with the sticky bun, how it feels, how it tastes. And my eyes are just rolled into the back of my head as I'm biting into these sticky buns. It was like a shark just taking purchase. And I don't remember a lot except for we could not stop laughing because there was this sugar high, the sugar rush. I just kept on sucking them down as fast as I could. I'm going to show you a picture so you can see what I'm talking about right there. I mean, come on. Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember looking over and I hadn't even taken a bite and your plate was empty. I was like, what happened?
It's
what
true.
Happened? Yeah, you were just You
I wasn't-
loved that.
I was not remembering my manners. I think it was licking the plate, everything. It is my downfall. But that is one of my favorite sticky buns, not just for the recipe. The recipe is a great way to learn how to make yeast dough, but also just for the memories with Julia.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a good one.
Yeah.
But people also, not only is it the recipes, it's the taste tests that I think really set our show apart. And of course, we put all the taste test winners in the cookbook so that if you want to know the best broth or canned tomatoes, we tell you the brands to buy. And that's because we're on PBS, and it's public television. We don't take advertising in the magazines. And that just allows us to have freedom of speech and say what we really think about a product without having to lose advertising dollars. And the taste tests are interesting. So if you picture, and they've been really hard to do in quarantine, I have to say, we put a handful of them on hold because it really is a big group of people sitting at a table tasting the same products. Now, you can't talk. So picture 20 people in a room, all tasting, say, 8 samples of almond butter, and nothing's labeled. They're all in identical cups that are numbered. The thing behind a tasting is you have to have at least 21 or 22 valid tasters that day for that tasting to be valid. And so when we not only taste it straight, we taste it in cooking applications. So peanut butter would be cookies and sandwiches and in a peanut sauce, because it's one thing if you can taste a difference when they're straight, but it's another thing if you mix it and make a peanut sauce with chicken and noodles, are you going to taste those nuances? And so there's no talking. They're all presented identically. Now, not everyone at the table can start with the same sample, because if one of the samples has a really strong flavor, it could affect your palate as you go around. And so everyone starts at a different place. So that's interesting. And then there's the super secret rule, which is that 2 of the samples are identical and you don't know which ones they are. And this is an idea to just for the people looking at your testing or your tasting sheets, to tell if you're having a good or bad tasting day. Because if you like it the first time around, but you hate it the second time around, then something happened, right? You're having a bad tasting day, something got interrupted, and you're not tasting accurately, and your sheet gets tossed because you're not a reliable taster that day. And so you cobble all these together and you get a really accurate picture of what a good product is and what a bad product is. And Bridget, what's your most favorite ingredient testing you ever won and the least favorite?
Well, I can't remember a specific favorite. I would probably say, I would guess it would have to do with bacon. Yeah, probably. But I can name my least favorite. Now, when we film the show, we start super early in the morning. Sometimes the cameras are rolling by 7:30, 8 o'clock if we need to get a lot done. And this was my day to work with Jack, at least that particular morning. And it was really early, and he had lined up in shot glasses fish sauce. And
good morning.
I love fish sauce, use it all the time, not in a shot glass. And certainly not at 7 o'clock in the morning, and not one after the other. It was pretty intense. Yeah. How about you?
So bad to do that to you first thing in the morning.
I know.
Oh,
and not even like on rice or anything like that.
No, just straight.
Yeah.
I think Jack was trying to do something similar to me the day he made me taste hot sauce. He had bowls of hot sauce, but he doesn't realize I love hot sauce. I put it on everything. So I was just happy as a clam eating spoonfuls of hot sauce. And I could pick out the Frank's Red Hot because I eat buffalo wings, and that is the flavor of 2 buffalo wings. I could pick out the Tabascos because I kept thinking, well, this tastes like a Bloody Mary, so that must be Tabasco. And then there was one I hated. I absolutely hated. And it's one I actually have in my refrigerator, but I couldn't identify it. And then that was really interesting. Because, I know I could recognize them all except for this one that turns out I don't like. And I came home and threw the bottle out. I was like, nope, don't want to taste that again. So it was interesting because I learned something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is the job, right? Every day we
Yeah.
learn something new, and we get to work with all these great people that are bringing all their different experiences, both into the magazines and the books that we produce, but also to the TV shows. And I think that's just been, it's been my culinary education really has been, since 1998. You're right there, 1998, 99, learning from other people that we work with.
Yep, absolutely.
Everything always changes every year. I want to put in a little plug here for a timely conversation we might want to be having soon.
Oh, good call. If anyone has any Thanksgiving questions,
Yeah,
now is your
exactly.
chance. Let's dive into some questions because I see a couple of them here.
I think
So
that
the
sounds good.
first stuff I'm going to throw to you. It's from Ron. How did the pandemic affect your work in the test kitchen? You want to take this, Bridget?
Sure, it sounds good. Hi, Ron. The pandemic, we shut down all of our offices for a while. We're starting to open a little bit for photo shoots, doing some video shoots there as well. But basically, it was all hands on deck. People mustered, and we devised a plan so that the testing of recipes, the tasting of ingredients, all of that could continue at home. So we have different people cooking in their own homes, which is actually a great thing if you think about it. It's one thing to cook in the test kitchen where everything is at your fingertips, but maybe when you're at home, something might be a little bit more difficult to do. And it's good to remind ourselves that maybe you don't want to wash all of those dishes after a recipe. So that's something to keep in mind. But everybody is working from home. We do have group tastings where ingredients will be mailed to different people so that a lot of people can still fill out their surveys on things like that. But Julia was mentioning before, obviously we did the TV show at home. That was the big one. We made this decision, I'd say, Julia, at the end of March, early April, really, that we were going to have to plan on doing the TV show from our homes. And what you see me cooking in is actually, my home was under construction. I couldn't even cook in my home at that point. So ATK was great to find me a space so that I could cook in that space. So everything's a little topsy-turvy. I do think that if there can be anything good that comes out of this, is that we are really reevaluating how we all cook at home, which is the whole gig that we do.
It's one thing to have the best recipe, but if it uses every tool in your arsenal and then you're looking at 2 hours of dishwashing, is that really the best recipe?
Right.
And I think, in the test kitchen, we have shoppers shopping for us. We have kitchen assistants that help us keep the place clean and scrub the pots, so that when you're at your home and you're that one person doing all of it, it's, it's a slightly different point of view. And I think it was really, eye-opening for a lot of test cooks to reevaluate what the best means in a home situation. So I think that was interesting. Here's another one from Laura. Love you both. Oh, thanks, Laura. I've been very happy to see Cooks Illustrated push for more diversity. Yep. How's it going? And what can we expect in the coming year? Great question, Laura. In June of this year, we announced an action plan to build a more diverse company and more inclusive culture. And it's going well. It's an active mission. We formed a diversity council actually last year with the idea to have really across the country to have a positive culture of inclusion. We're expanding the efforts of the Diversity Council now to increase the hiring, the mentorship, and the retention of all BIPOC, that's Black, Indigenous, and People of Color employees. And the goal for the end of 2021 is to have our organization be at least 50% BIPOC, and then we're going to renew those goals in 2022. So it has become a really active mission of ours to make sure, that our shows and the cooks in the kitchen represent the readers and viewers. I mean, that seems like an obvious thing that we should do. We should represent everyone who reads and watches us. And in terms of, there's a lot of questions about looking at international recipes and how to prepare them and present them in an authentic way that is respectful. And we actually have been through a number of a number of meetings and councils where we look at the world of food through that lens, and how can we celebrate food in a respectful way. And so and we're going back to our archives and sort of remapping and taking out things that we feel are not respectful and going to redo them, or just put the proper light on them that needs to be. So it is a point of conversation in almost every meeting we go to. And actually I'm very proud to be working at a company that just took it head on and said, yep, we could do better. And so anyway, so in the coming year, I think you're going to see a lot of the effects of that in our shows and our podcasts and in our magazines. All right, this one's for you, Bridget. It's
all right. Rena says, let's see, love you both. Love you too, Rena. What was one of your most horrifying kitchen experiences?
Oh my gosh, it's always with Bridget, the horrifying ones. Let's see, what have I seen Bridget done? I've seen her duck when a Pyrex exploded in the microwave because Adam was trying to do a microwaved roux. I've seen you get electrocuted doing dishes in the test kitchen because it was an old test kitchen, and back in the day there were just 2 ranges that were plugged in and we had to do the dishes. The new people had to do the dishes, and I was the newest person, so that was usually me. But Bridget always helped out. And so one day she went to flip on, what was it, the food disposal?
It was the food disposal, that switch that had the sockets right next to it.
I just saw her go flying across the room.
I know.
Poltergeist.
I tell you what, that affects you though. Like I head for the basement during any electrical storm these days.
You start barking when you smell smoke.
Right.
My dog does. I've seen you slip on the greasy leftover bits on TV. On TV, usually one person cooks and then another person comes on and cooks to give that other person a break to reset. And I was on just before Bridget making a stir fry, and I am a mess in the kitchen. If I'm cooking at home, I have to sweep that floor easily 3-4 times a day. And I had my husband, my kitchen's tiny, and my husband and I built it ourselves, and I have the floor level with the back door lip. So I can just open the back door and I sweep it out. It's my favorite. But anyway, I'm a mess. And I'm doing stir fry, so there's a lot of splatter. And Bridget, with her gorgeous old cowboy boots with the leather bottoms, comes on to make cassoulet. And so you're in this huge Le Creuset Dutch oven, which is already heavy, and it's filled to the brim with cassoulet. And you're about putting it in the oven, and you just slipped. And you didn't spill a drop of that cassoulet. But I just remember thinking, oh, there she goes again.
It always has to do with my feet. My feet go up. My backside went down. The cassoulet didn't spill. But a few years ago, right before we started shooting Cook's Country, I broke my foot. Remember that?
Oh, that's right. You were wheeling around on that thing.
Yeah, and you guys, hopefully you couldn't tell. But yeah, I was wheeling around on a scooter. And then my most horrific experience, though, didn't happen on the TV show. It was during one of my Christmas cookie palooza days, and I'm not going to get into it too much, but the Cuisinart blade got knocked on the floor and I stepped on it. So
yeah. Oh, you went there.
Yeah.
That is a horrifying kitchen experience.
Yeah.
Mine pale in comparison. They just pale. She's got the best kitchen horrifying experiences of anyone I know.
I'm so glad that I can entertain you with my terrible experiences.
You're number one in that category.
I don't want to be.
Here's a question from Elizabeth. How has the testing part of ATK been affected? Now, this is interesting because if you think about our process, it's a very communal process. It's very democratic, where you have people looking at the same thing. If it's a piece of equipment, they're using it and watching each other at different, and different people are using it to see how it works for, if it's a knife, different hand sizes, lefties, righties, experienced cooks, inexperienced cooks, and so on. And same with the food. If we're tasting a recipe, we're standing around and talking about it. So obviously that's not we've had to change our processes dramatically. So the testing is still happening of equipment. Our testing editors have if I see them on Zoom on a video, behind them are just boxes of equipment, and they're doing all this testing in their home kitchen, and it creates a ton of food. And so everyone's There's a lot of emails about who's hungry and where the community fridges are. There's a handful of community fridges downtown, and everyone's made lots of friends with their neighbors because you're giving food away. Taste tests are not happening just because it's just too hard to do that in a controlled way where you're going to get a controlled data that we think is up to snuff. In terms of cooking, people are cooking recipes at home. When a recipe gets close to the finish line, it goes to someone else on the team to make. Sometimes there'll be a meeting in the afternoon and everyone's supposed to cook a recipe so it's done at the same time so they can taste it all together on Zoom. So they're just coming up with really interesting ways to get around the fact that, you know, the having input on what each of us are working on is really important. So, and it's always changing.
It is always changing. You're right.
Yeah. All right. Oh,
Let's
here's
see
one
here.
from Annie.
Annie.
Cooking or baking experience that helped teach you the most? Oh, that's a good question.
What? Let's see.
What's
Cooking
taught
or
you the
baking
most?
experience helped teach you the most. Well, working in commercial kitchens, I was able to work with some really talented people in the pastry industry that taught me precision. Really, really important, especially if you're baking. That's why I love using a scale. I don't tell America's Test Kitchen, but I use grams as much as possible. I use metric weights because it really is the most accurate. And also teaching patience that the work that you put into something is worth doing well. So take your time, enjoy the process. How about you, Julia?
Well, if I look back at all the things, I definitely, the most I've learned about cooking is definitely been working in the test kitchen, because really there's no other place like it where you can come to work and make the same thing a handful of different times, changing one of the variables, like the chicken, for example. If you're making 5 roast chickens and you get to roast them at the same time, but change one variable to see what the effect of that variable is on the recipe, that there's so much built into that. Right. In terms of not only learning about the recipe, but learning about generic cooking things, about the effect of different oven temperatures on meat or chicken or whatever. And you just get so familiar with these foods so quickly. And I worked on the cookbook team for many years, and every cookbook has a different focus. So we tackle, using the ATK methodology for developing recipes, we'd tackle smaller topics like gluten-free. I remember the gluten-free books were just jaw-dropping in terms of what I learned, because I had to throw everything I knew about baking out the window, because gluten-free flour does not behave like regular flour. So the basics I had to relearn: what a batter should look like, how to tell when something's done. It doesn't look done, it looks jiggly, but that's because gluten-free starches don't set up until they cool. So everything I had to learn, I had to relearn. And so with books with a focus like that, and we did a diabetes book and learning about sodium and diabetes, or learning about the vegetarian book was pretty incredible for me, because I'm a meat eater. And so I thought every recipe was going to have to be every vegetable under the sun to make it taste good. And I quickly learned that the point of a great vegetarian recipe is to highlight the flavor of one, maybe 2 vegetables, how to bring out their unique texture and flavor. And that just, was different for me. So I think working on the books at ATK with the smaller topics has really just been the most instructional for me.
Well, that's a great segue into another question we have here from Karina. And I love this. Given the pandemic issues, is there a plan to tackle a cookbook about Pan-Pacific cuisine? The U.S. should know the beauty of Pacific cuisine. I totally agree with this.
Absolutely.
I don't think, now what I don't know is a lot, but I don't think that right now we have that on our lineup. That is a great idea. Obviously it covers a huge, vast area. And that would be a beautiful book on so many different levels. So thank you,
Karina. I'm going to take that and pretend it's my idea and plug it into our next book team meeting.
And I will make sure you get credit for it.
I'll give credit to Karina. Oh, here's a good one from Moira. Explain the difference between ATK and Cook's Country. Not sure why they're separate shows. Yeah, Moira, we're with you. We are actively trying to make these shows and what behind the magazines, because of course, America's Test Kitchen is based on Cook's Illustrated magazine. Cook's Country is based on Cook's Country magazine. And so the magazines are very different, and we want to represent that difference on the show.
Yeah, and that can get a little tricky, especially when you have to look at our faces all the time for both shows. But one of the main differences between the two, and you know, the recipes are developed in test kitchens, so it's the same testing process. Cooks Illustrated and therefore ATK sometimes will take a little bit more of a scientific look at why things are happening. So maybe back up and look at the food on a more molecular level. Cook's Country tends to celebrate the history, the regionality, kind of the quilt of American cooking, and which is always changing and always turning over and becoming new. So I think that is a way that we're also looking at the television shows and really wanting to emphasize those in both of them.
Yeah, and worth noting that Cook's Country has a new editor-in-chief. The wonderful Toni Tipton Martin is coming on board next week. And she also, you know, is known for exploring regionality of food. And so she is just gonna, I think, help us take the TV show and focus on that a bit more, along with the magazine. So that's fun. Looking forward to that.
We have a question from Carlos. Hi, Carlos. Agree that the combo of global foods and American comfort foods is inspired and delicious. 2 questions. You sneaking 2 in there, Carlos. How do you balance authenticity with convenience and accessibility? And 2, have you ever thought of reviewing global food prep equipment too, like the French crepe griddle or Mexican comals or Chinese woks? Well, we did do recently a Chinese wok testing, and we wanted to, correct me if I'm wrong, Julia, but we're waiting until we're back in the studio to do that particular testing on television, right? But
that's right.
But Cooks Illustrated did run a great testing in the magazine. But I agree with you, Carlos. I think it'd be great if we started including more global food prep equipment, because guess what? There's some really great equipment that maybe isn't in every single store over here that we should know about, that's going to make our lives easier and make cooking a lot more fun and enjoyable.
Definitely. And the balance of authenticity and convenience and accessibility is a tough question. That's the gold star question right there. But luckily, I mean, supermarkets are different nowadays than they were 10, 15 years ago, much less, you know, being able to order groceries on the web or unique ingredients on the web. So that we really, whereas 10, 15 years ago, I think even 20 years ago, Bridget and I used to laugh that we used to have to call for Chipotle's with, and have to have a substitute in the head
Right.
And now, you know, you go to even the smallest supermarket and you can get a couple different kinds of powder versus canned. So, you know, the grocery store is different. What you can get is different. What's accessible is different. So we're able to be more authentic and less worried about convenience, which is where we want to be.
Yeah, it's a good time. All right.
Pandemic weight. I have no
Robert,
idea what you're talking about, Robert.
I feel you there,
Pandemic
Robert.
weight.
So Robert writes, we've put on some pandemic weight lately. Any plans on releasing an updated light recipes book? Well, the first thing I'm going to say is, again, this is a very good resistance training book. So you can burn some calories in there.
We do have, every year we have 1 or 2 books that focus on a particular style of health or a style of eating. We have a plant-based book coming out. We had a vegan book last year. And one of our top selling books of all time is the Mediterranean Cookbook,
Right.
which for many years has been the US News and according to many health organizations, the top diet if you want to live a healthy life. And of course, the Mediterranean pyramid, food pyramid. I don't know if you know about it, but it's very different. It has wine at the top, which immediately makes me like it. And it includes things like sociability and being with friends and getting outside. And so it's just a very different view as to food is a part of a larger circle of health. And yeah, that book, I have to say, is maybe one you should look into just as we look into the new year. New year, new you.
It's just more to love, Robert.
Yeah, right?
Right? Elizabeth has a comment about our sticky buns, the clip from the show. Yeah, no, it's like Lucy and Ethel.
Oh,
cooking.
well, yeah. Well, I mean, so you were eating sticky buns like they're going out of style. Meanwhile, I don't like cinnamon, and I really don't like cinnamon buns, truth be told, but the sticky bun, that's why I was talking so much at the beginning. I was like, oh, I have to eat this. And then I started eating it, and then I realized how good it was. And then I was straight up giggling. I was like, this is delicious.
Julia ended up on the floor at one point.
Oh, I was beat red.
Yeah, I think there's some blooper reels of that segment too. I think there might be an extended segment on YouTube. And if you want the rough cut, just email me $10. No, just kidding.
Oh, here's a neat one from Angela. I love hearing about the mysterious taste testing process. Yeah, it's interesting. Do you recommend the home cook do that as a family exercise? I think that's just fun, especially if you have kids, to pull out different types of peanut butter, different brands of jelly. One of my all-time favorite tastings, only because it's incredibly useful, is if you buy a lot of store-bought chicken broth. It is the wrong broth can make a great soup taste like dishwater. And so buying the right broth is absolutely important. And it's pretty easy to taste them and tell what you like. Chocolate is always a really fun tasting because there are no losers. And of course you have to taste that a couple times, you know, taste it straight, and a brownie and a cookie, you know. So definitely I think every family should do a chocolate tasting.
No fish sauce. Maybe once. Let's see here. Do you have a vegetarian Thanksgiving meal suggestion? Deborah is asking. Well, I do. There's a beautiful wild mushroom galette that is impressive and special. I mean, I think that's the issue. Sometimes the vegetarian offerings at Thanksgiving, people say, "Oh, you just want another side," and that's not right. We want to make vegetarians feel special and welcome. And I tell you what, the mushroom and leek galette is perfection and filling and impressive.
Yeah, you were telling me about this last week. You're telling me I should make that.
Gorgeous.
Because we were talking about pie dough. And of course, if you're making pie dough, the all butter pie dough from Cooks Illustrated is the best pie dough. We were talking, I make it in batches and keep it in the freezer for the right vegetable or fruit to come around. And I know you do the same thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. As much as you can. Batch cooking is great. It's going to make your life easier, especially with everyone else at home as well. They will never leave. Everyone else at home, it's just easy to have food at the ready. I mean, I've got my husband and my two sons, and I swear there's a back door on our fridge because I put food in through the front and it just disappears.
Here's one from Mary. What's your favorite dish to make at home, and do you ever go out for a meal? Do we ever go out for a meal? Do I? I have pizza on speed dial. That's a Friday night staple.
Us too.
Do you? Yeah. I mean, I could make pizza, but I like buying it from the pizzeria. And the other thing we do regularly, if it's not pizza, it's ramen. There's a great ramen place the next town over. And those are things that we order in at least every week.
Yeah. Have you gone out to a meal lately?
There's a deli down the street that has really good pastrami sandwiches, which is a favorite of mine. And they have picnic tables out in the parking lot. And it was in the middle of the day, and my daughter was in school, so my husband and I went and had lunch. And but that's the only time. It felt a little unusual. Like, it was obviously I'm in the parking lot and it's all that, but I realized, it made me a little uncomfortable. I'll buy takeout everywhere, but I'm not ready to sit down in a restaurant yet, unfortunately.
And they were like, "Ma'am, this is a Home Depot."
Have you been out to eat, Bridget?
Not since the summer. My husband and I went to. We're big on beer brewing here at home, but we also like to support our local breweries, and that was something that was kind of a little bit of a silver lining was the expansion of the beer gardens up here on the North Shore of Boston, and so we would go and every once in a while and just sit outside and have a few pints and big giant pretzels and fried pickles and things like that. That was it. But as far as anything else, I mean, my husband works at a restaurant, so he's literally in a restaurant every day. But no, we're just sticking close to home. It's the best restaurant in town, right?
Exactly. Chez moi, we call it.
Chez moi, right.
I think we have time for one more question before we sign off. I see one great question here by Karina, who says, I used to participate in ATK's home cook taste tester trials. Are you still doing that? And being overseas, can one still participate if overseas? So Karina, yes, we're still doing those tests. And let me back up and explain the process for anyone who's not quite sure what Karina is talking about. So whenever we develop a recipe, whether it's in the test kitchen or this year in our homes, the last step before publishing it and putting it on TV is to send it out to a group of home cooks across the country and now overseas, thanks to Karina, to make it in their own home setting. And currently, I think we have between 60 and 70,000 test cooks in the US. And so we send them the recipe and we send them a survey. And on their own time and their own dime, they make the recipe and they fill out the survey with questions like, could you find all the ingredients? Did the instructions make sense? Could you have used a photo somewhere along the way to help you understand what we're talking about, and so on. And there's one really important question on that survey, and that is, would you make the recipe again? And every recipe needs to get an 80% yes, I would make it again before it gets published. And if comments come back and the percentage is less than 80% of people would make it again. And of course, we read all the comments about what did work and didn't work for people in their home kitchens. Because when we're in the test kitchen, usually, you have a lot of people and a lot of help, and we have all clad stacked to the ceiling and more Le Creuset than the Le Creuset factory on hand. And so we can make anything work. But the real value of a good recipe of ours is whether it can be recreated at home. And the only way to know that is if people test it for us at home. So Karina, yes, and anyone else who wants to do a recipe tester, your comments are invaluable. If you go down to the bottom of our website, you'll see some links, and I forget which one is on there specifically.
Yeah, it says be a recipe tester. It's at the very bottom of the column under magazines. So I'll help you out.
And Karina, we'd love to have you back as a recipe tester. Thank you.
Definitely.
Well, thank you all for joining. It was nice to see you, Bridget.
Nice to see you too.
And again, remember, if you're interested in buying the book or any of our other books, check out bookshop.org. Help support your local independent booksellers by shopping at bookshop.org online.
And we want to thank bookshop.org for having us. It's been a great experience, and we love what you do. So
happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
And happy Halloween.
Yeah. I noticed the skull behind your head.
It's just an old boyfriend.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.